Hello and welcome to Chinnyvision. My Amiga's not deaf, dumb and blind, but it sure plays a mean game of pinball. Pinball fans have been quite hard done by on the home computers. Not many decent, actually any decent pinball games. Things like Advanced Pinball Simulator by Codemasters and various other games that really didn't feel like pinball, rather slow, and the ball physics were usually pretty rough. Now 21st Century Entertainment aimed to change all that with Pinball Fantasies, first released on the Amiga, actually by Digital Illusions. 21st Century Entertainment were the publishers. The game came out in the early 90s and claimed to be the first proper pinball game with, as accurately as they could, emulated ball physics. The programmer names go past, you can't skip this bit. Lots of Scandinavian names. Andreas Axelsson, Ulf Mandarov, probably getting all these names wrong, Marcus Nystrom, and Barry Simpson. So I assume he was the guy at 21st Century Entertainment back in the UK. You get 4 tables to choose from: Ignition, Steel Wheel, Beatbox and Nightmare. Game came on a couple of discs, so you'd have to swap it over during loading. But once you'd put the second disc in, that was it. I don't recall there being any more swapping around. Stores your high scores from all the tables, saves into discs, which is nice, so you can see how you're progressing in the game. And it's keyboard only. Unusually for an Amiga game, there's no joystick control in this game, and that's simply because the keyboard gives a better response and more accurate response when you're hammering away at it to flip the flippers. So there we go, I'm just trying to get my controls there, I've hit the wrong button. Pull back on the cursor key and off we go. Beautifully smooth scrolling. It's not a whole table to one screen. The screen scrolls around with the ball up and down. It doesn't need to do it left to right. Incredibly fast here. The capture's having trouble keeping up with this. Hopefully it's going to come out okay, because it really is pushing what we can capture. As ever, this is recorded from the Amiga 1200, a real machine. Lost my ball there. Off we go. Each table has different graphics and different music, although the format always remains the same and the tables always remain the same. Oh dear. You can press space to tip the table as you could with a real pinball machine, but do that too much and it detects it and the flippers stop working, the ball just slips out through the bottom. I use the 2 Alt keys to fire the flippers, left and right. I think there's other keys as well, but I just find these the 2 easiest. And it really does work. The first time you hear, there's no joystick control, you think, oh dear, that's going to be annoying. But actually, and we'll see why later on when we look at other versions, the Alt keys and the keyboard controls it's hard to explain, but it feels right. You can hammer away at the keyboard. In fact, you find yourself hammering at the keys too hard, because it's not going to make any difference how hard you hammer the keys, it's just how fast you press the keys. One little niggle is the ball, although it's animated in that it moves around, the actual ball itself doesn't change to reflect where it is on the table. It's always the same sprite, there's no colour change or anything like that. Various power-ups all over the table, all the power-ups are themed the table you're on. Like a real pinball table, again, you've got to hit all the power-ups in the correct sequence, and it's down to you to work out which sequence that is. So, for example, you've got to light up all the lights on that fuel indicator on the left-hand side there. On to table 2, and this is Steel Wheel. Different graphics, different tune. When you get power-ups, the music changes as well. It's really nice. You get all the noises. Oh dear. Out of practice. You get all the noise and sensations of a real pinball machine. To date, at this time, this was the best pinball emulation you could get on a home computer. First of all, came out on the Amiga. There's no ST version that I can see. Perhaps the ST might have struggled with the scrolling. I don't know. And you can see on the gradient bits there up the top that they've used stippling, just like on 8-bit games, to achieve more colours than are actually on the screen, which is a nice touch. The game's so colourful and the graphics are really impressive. Right, this is Beatbox, this is table 3, and this is my favourite one. I think this table, of all of them, hangs together the best, and it plays the best as well. Really nice sound effects, you're achieving different chart positions in Europe or USA, and creating things like your singles, your albums, your music videos, as you get the different power-ups. Shame I'm not playing this off my original floppy disks, because I'll be able to show that I had quite high scores back in the day, as opposed to being incredibly rusty as I am now. I'm playing this on the usual delay with capture, which makes it a little bit difficult. I'm always whinging about that. The fact is, I'm just a pathetic games player. Pinball Dreams had lots of follow-ups. There's actually a Pinball Dreams 2 for the PC, but actually the proper follow-ups are Pinball Fantasies and Pinball Illusions, which also came out on the Amiga, and they also had AGA versions available for the Amiga 1200 with lots more colours. Got to say, out of all of them, it's still the case, of all the ones I've played, that this game and this table in particular is probably the best one. Digital Illusions were essentially just rehashing the same code for the subsequent releases, because it all works, obviously, the table physics and what have you. So all they had to do was add new tables to the game. Really, essentially, those future games probably should have been expansion discs for the original game. But hey, you can't charge 25 quid for an expansion disc. It all hangs together so well. It just feels right. I'm not a hardened pinball player, so I'm guessing I probably don't have the best opinion on this, but it feels right. Of the few actual real pinball games I've played, nothing really gives you the sense of the ball pinging around and feeling the stuff ping around on the table as you do the real pinball game and all those flashing lights. But this is pretty good for a home computer game. And this is the final table. It's Graveyard. And again, I have to compliment the aesthetic design of the game. The colour choices are really nice. And it all looks so good. Oh dear, my ball's just gone flying through the bottom again. You've really got to have good reactions on this game. I'm guessing each table should probably be more difficult than the last, but in actual fact I find Ignition one of the hardest tables and one of the least satisfying, and Beatbox one of the easier ones and the most satisfying, and I like this Graveyard one as well. Although it does launch the ball out quite low. If you notice on the right hand side there, it launches the ball out halfway up the table on the right there. It's also worth mentioning other pinball games that came out around the same time, such as Dragon's Fury on the Mega Drive, which is a really, really good pinball game. It's more arcadey. I think Pinball Dreams tries to go for a more accurate feel of what a pinball machine should be like, whereas Dragon's Fury tries to go for what a computer game of a pinball game should feel like, if you see what I mean, because you can do things where you hit the ball into another screen and you completely flip over, the screen changes completely and suddenly you're on another miniature table. You don't get any of that on Pinball Dreams. What you see here scrolling up and down is what you get. So Pinball Dreams got ported to lots of other systems, one of which was the Super Nintendo. So we're going to load this up on my SNES. This version was developed by Spidersoft, so not by Digital Illusions themselves, and it was published by GameTech of Frontier Elite 2 fame. Looks like the graphics, certainly on the loading screen here, are ported straight from the Amiga, and yeah, this is looking pretty similar, except it's squashed down, which indicates to me they've probably done an NTSC version first and then ported it back to PAL. So you've got it in this slightly odd window. And oh, look, there's something weird going on here. We don't appear to have... Oh, no, we don't. And what's this thing going on here? We don't have the full table width and got these stupid fruit figures. Is that the Munch Bunch? Oh, I think it is. Whatever happened to the Munch Bunch? Well, they were cartoon characters who also came out in promoting yogurts, as I recall. Oh, no, that's gone badly. This is horrible. The SNES is perfectly capable of having the same width screen as the Amiga, and yet we're scrolling around here horribly. We've got a crunched down screen, so it appears in a window compared to the Amiga version, and it's scrolling left and right. I'm pretty sure there's not a technical need for that. Right, at least we don't get that stupid Munch Bunch animation again. Obviously Munch Bunch, or the people who make the yogurts, have... was it a cartoon? I know there were definitely yogurts. I may be misremembering it. Maybe the adverts... Look, this is stupid. This is a pinball game, and I've got an orange in a sombrero coming down when the... Who? What management idiot went, hey guys, good news, I've got sponsorship from the Munch Bunch, but you've got to stick them in the game somehow. And then the poor programmers have to work out how to get this stupid endorsement into the game. Oh, I've lost the ball again. They've ported the graphics across on the Amiga. This is a lazy port. They could have done something to scale them down or something here. This is useless. And the joypad doesn't work. Well, I say doesn't work. I talked about how it was good that on the Amiga version you couldn't use the joystick and you were forced to use the keyboard, and that gave an immediacy to when you press the keys. The joypad just doesn't feel as immediate. It's not like pressing a key where you're immediately on it, you know when it's going to make contact. You're using the left D-pad for the left paddle and one of the right buttons for the right paddle. Oh, I just did it there. That's not captured lag. That is simply that the buttons aren't as tactile as a real computer keyboard. So it's difficult to time when you want the button to flip. Oh dear. This is a game that's just been lazily ported to the SNES. There's no other word for it. There's versions for the Game Gear, the Game Boy Advance, no Atari ST version, although there is a version for the Atari Falcon, which means it probably sold about 2 copies, given that the Falcon probably sold 10 units. And I imagine the Falcon version is probably quite good. It can probably do a good job of copying the Amiga graphics and getting it all looking and feeling right. This, I'm afraid, is just a bodge to get it onto the SNES, and I don't actually think it needs to be this bad. I think the SNES should be able to do the full Amiga screen width. We're on to Beatbox now, which god-awful Munch Bunch. Here we go, giant BlackBerry in a baseball cap. This is a pinball simulation, not a thing to promote yogurts to kids. Are Munch Bunch still around? I'll have to look that up. I don't think I've seen them. It was this era of we'll get any product endorsement we can and stick it into our game. Chumpa Chomp's doing Zool, Cool Spot and 7-Up. All these dreadful endorsements that they did in the mid-90s. But thankfully today you don't get. I was going to say we didn't get them in the 8-bit era, but of course we've got Action Biker with Curly Collin, whatever he was called. It was for KP Skips. This is my favourite table. I'm not enjoying this at all. It just doesn't work. And at least they've ported the sound across straight from the Amiga. So you've got the proper Amiga sound. And I expect it's just been sampled straight across. So at least there's that. Let's forward on to Graveyard. All the colours from the Amiga version are here. They've done a fairly good job. It looks a little bit more harsh. There's a little bit of subtlety being lost just on some of the background graphics there that the Amiga has. Just for example, the stippling on the ramps doesn't look as smooth as the Amiga was well suited. These are the Amiga graphics. They've been copied across. This is just one of those jobs I expect where they've got all the Amiga assets and they've just ported it straight across using automated methods and just thrown together the game in a few weeks. So Pinball Dreams, it's certainly the best pinball game on the Amiga. it's probably even better than its successors. On the SNES, it's a really poor port of the Amiga game. I don't think there's technical reasons why it has to scroll around quite like it does. It's been crudely ported and it shows, and I'd be bitterly disappointed if I'd got a SNES and thought, hey, my mate's got Pinball Dreams on his Amiga, I'm going to buy it for my SNES, and got it home and thought this game's a really bad copy. It's got a compressed screen, it scrolls around, the graphics aren't as nice, has the Amiga sound, but then again, it's been sampled straight from an Amiga. For the Amiga, Pinball Dreams is probably the ultimate pinball simulator. On the SNES, it's the ultimate lame port simulator.